I used to hate reading books. As a kid, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and I thought I was slow or bad at reading books. While this may have been the case, I just never found any books that I particularly enjoyed or that solved my issue at the time. I used to associate reading with school and school with homework, and homework is the bane of my existence. Then I was on a exchange program, a university exchange program in America, and I thought I'd be a responsible young adult and begin to pick up a book. Now, I have a lot of energy and find it very difficult to sit down them for more than 3 minutes at a time. However, to my surprise, I managed to sit down and read 10 pages of the book. Until this day, I just cannot remember what book it was, but it must have been mildly interesting. After a few weeks of reading 5 to 10 pages a day, I began to realize why everyone used to keep going on about reading books, and why my dad was like, you should go read books when you were a kid, and why I just never did it. Every tricky problem or situation I've ever been in is not unusual. It's highly likely that someone's written a book on it before. So a lot of people read books for entertainment and fiction, but there's also books that are there to solve genuine issues that have been there for hundreds of years, that can solve almost any issue or any problem or any tricky situation you're going through. So in 2018, I read a couple books that really changed my perspective, habits, and I thought I'd come on and share these books. I realized when I was reading these books, I only ever take in 1 to 3 things in the whole 100, 200, 300 page book. In saying that, I only ever apply one of those things in my day-to-day life, if even. So rather than going cover to cover on all these books, I thought I'd share a quick summary of each one and why I enjoyed it so much. So the first book that had the most impact, I'd say, was Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I used to be horrific at personal finances, and I'm still not great. David Ramsey has a very simple and unique approach to personal finance that I started using. It's a very simple system that you can implement if you're in debt, or if you're not in debt and you just want to get a handle on personal finance and what to do with your money. I found this book really helpful. I started saving for the first time properly. Even though I'm a college student and it's not a lot of income, I still started saving, and the compounding of the saving and the methods he goes about in the book is very helpful. My favorite line from the book is, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. I thought that was a very nice touch and just a really good book for overall personal finances, because I had really no clue what I was doing. Secondly is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Don Miguel Ruiz wrote this book called The Four Agreements. I listened to it via audiobook and it blew me away. It's a very short book. It's about how we were domesticated from a young age to live by certain rules and principles that not necessarily are good for us. So he came up with these 4 principles that give back our personal freedom, or just to live by, that will help you live a better and more fulfilling life. So he talks about these 4 principles. The first principle is be impeccable with your word. The second principle is don't take anything personally. Third principle is don't make assumptions. The fourth principle is always do your best. Even though they seem like a very common sense, the way he says in the book and the stories he gives behind each principle and the reasoning behind each principle, which I won't go into detail now, is pretty profound, and I'd highly recommend it. The third book is Principles by Ray Dalio. So Ray Dalio is CEO of Bridgewater Associates. Bridgewater Associates is one of the biggest funds in the world. It manages over 160 billion worth of assets, or his clients' funds, and it was voted one of the top 5 most important companies in America. After working in the financial sector for 40 years, Ray Dalio wrote down the principles he lives by, whether it be in work or in his personal life, that yes, has made him to where he is and become a billionaire status, but more importantly, just some principles he's lived by, because when you go through his book and you listen to some of the stories in his personal life, some of the stuff's pretty interesting, hilarious, but also pretty real. So he's gone through a lot, and he wrote this book, and it was very worthwhile reading, and I took a lot from it. The main thing I took from it was very simple but highly effective, and it is pain plus reflection equals growth. I used to think it was a bad thing to put yourself in a tough situation, make a hard decision, but when you go through that, then reflect on it, at the end of it, ultimately you'll be better for it. And I know it sounds quite cheesy and kind of corny, but I found this very helpful small little line that pain plus reflection equals growth. It kind of had to stop when I was reading it and re-register my mind to what it actually meant. The fourth book is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Now this is a pretty popular book. Some of you may have read it before. It's translated into 67 different languages and it's sold over 60 million plus copies worldwide. My dad handed it to me last Christmas as a present when I was going through a very tricky situation. It's a story of a young lad called Santiago making his way through life in different trials and tribulations. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a teenager or a young 20-something, or if not, you're just starting a new project or doing something new. It is a very good fable. It's more than self-help literature. It's a very good fable and story about life in general, and I found it very helpful. A great line from it is, it's the possibility of a dream coming through that makes life interesting. And I know it's very short, but that's only one of the many lines in the book that I've thoroughly enjoyed. The fifth book is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Now, I used to think that Nike was this massive brand and it's been around since the dawn of time. Turns out it's not. Phil Knight is he's the founder of Nike, by the way, and he only founded Nike quite recently, and I didn't realize this up until I read the book, that this behemoth of a brand could be created by one person, and his story is absolutely great. Flying to Japan, getting runners, sneakers, trainers, and then flipping them. I thought it was brilliant. And it stops just before Nike became what it is today. It's the story of the ground up from where the idea of Nike came from. I highly recommend it, and it most likely goes to show that if you probably have an idea in your head, for me, I should probably think about trying it, and it's just a really good book. One of my favorite lines in the stories he tells is, he said to himself in the morning of 1962, he told himself, let everyone else call your idea crazy. Just keep going. Don't stop. Don't even think about stopping till you get there. And don't give much thought to where there is. Whatever comes, just don't stop. That's probably where the line just do it comes from, but it's still a very important book and something that opened my mind to a whole new perspective and different possibilities. So the sixth book is Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Ryan's books have gained a somewhat of a cult following from NFL coaches, that's the National Football League in America. I know the Patriots accredit this book to when they won the Super Bowl in 2014 and overcame a massive deficit at halftime. This book introduced me to Stoicism, which I talked about in a previous video. So my favorite point from Ryan Holiday's book is, there's no good or bad without us. There is only perception. There's the event itself, and then there's the stories we tell ourselves about the event. So what I took away from that is, things happen to us all the time, and it's the stories that I tell myself about a certain event. That's what I believe from it. Things happen, but it's the takeaways and the stories I tell myself about the event and the perception I give to it is whether it's good or bad. Where he speaks about, there's only the event, and then your perception from the event makes it good or bad, a challenge, or is it a good thing? So the seventh and final book is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Pressfield talks about, there's a thing called resistance. Resistance is what we all face when we go to pursue something creative or a new business or a job interview to an important job. When we do anything important in life, something always comes up at those important moments, and that's called resistance. Whether you go to a job interview that's really important you want to get and you spill your coffee all over for you, when you try to shoot this video 3 times and your camera keeps on dying, or you want to start a business but somehow things just never seem to line up. It's usually in the most important pursuits that this term resistance comes up. Over the last year, I've been struggling with putting a video out. Over the past 2 years, if even, I've been procrastinating. I don't know what to make a video on. I've occupied myself with other things, pretending not to do it or procrastinating, where in reality that was all resistance. But the most important pursuit that I should have done is put out a video, because that's what I most enjoy and that's what fulfills me the most. So here I am. Finally, every time I wrote a idea for a video or went to shoot it, resistance would always pop up. So finally I managed to shoot a video. I realized that I needed to push through this resistance. I realized that maybe the procrastination or fear that I was facing meant that I should go to it, not something that I should go away from. My favorite line from Stephen Pressfield's book is, "Are you paralyzed by fear? Fear is good. It's like self-doubt. Fear is an indicator. Fear tells us what we have to do." Remember one rule of thumb: the more scared we are of a certain work or calling, the more sure that we should pursue it. This was probably the biggest takeaway and the most important thing I read from a book over the last year or two. And I hope that doesn't sound too cheesy or corny, but it was true in my case. I don't know about anyone else. And yeah, it's been good to finally shoot a video again. So folks, out of the 7 books, if you have any book recommendations or any books that you'd like me to review, I'd appreciate you commenting below and letting me know. And I will try to upload a video a lot more these days and try to get to one every week. Thank you for watching, and I'd appreciate if you would subscribe on the promise that I'm going to be uploading a video every week. Thanks for listening, and farewell.